Hello and welcome back to the Beyond the Suite podcast sponsored by the Salon Hub. As always, I'm your host, Steve Casano, and today on the podcast we have Nathi Vega, a hairstylist of 20 years out of Connecticut, and she's been running her own suite for the past 8. We talked to Nathi about education and her journey in education and how she is now an educator, teaches all over the place, including Vegas. We also get to go into how she's been using consistency as the main driver for growth on Instagram and how she integrates content collection and creation and posting into her day to day, and how she's been using who she is as a person as a great way to differentiate herself from the others in the beauty community around her. Really great advice. Nathi is hilarious, super fun to talk to. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. I know I had a blast talking to her. So, without any further ado, here is Nathi Vega. Since we last talked, right, I think you've been on a bit of an education spree, is what I've been noticing, perhaps. Is that true? Teaching a lot of classes
Yes, I've taught a few, I would say, in the last 3 years since COVID.
since COVID, but I mean, like recently, right? You've been teaching a couple recently, and you have a couple coming up this summer. Is that
Yes,
true?
I taught one back in January, and then I have another
Nice.
one up in the works in October, and then I'll be teaching in Vegas with my son and hair care family in July.
Whoa. Vegas sounds wild.
It is wild. This will be actually my fourth year teaching with them in Vegas.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's very
That's
cool.
great. What are you teaching in Vegas?
So every year I teach always a color segment. I always teach on
Okay.
brunettes, and this year I will be doing the same thing, but I usually just switch it up every year. So this year, usually since it's in the summer, I like to switch it up and kind of prep for fall time because I feel like a lot of people are just funny getting over summer trends and they want something new and exciting. So I will definitely be teaching more on brunettes, but kind of going into fall, how to transition your summer brunettes into fall brunettes. And I usually
Nice.
teach
Love it.
on the live model as well.
Oh, even better.
Yes, I feel like
That's awesome.
you get the full effect that way.
Yeah. You get to see the effect on their face too, which even if they're a model, it still means something, right? Like they're getting paid and or like it's a free service typically, right? But like they still gotta look good.
They still got to
So
look good. And you know what? They get the whole shebang. They get their makeup done. They come with a nice outfit. We get their pictures taken after. And I think it's just that's the full effect. That's the full circle moment.
yeah, I love that. Well, now we're kind of like we jumped the gun a little bit, and that was on
That's
purpose.
okay. I like that.
I really love that you are an educator, but at some point you had to learn all this stuff. So I want to go back to the beginning and where you started, and
Oh,
how you
yeah.
got to become an educator, right?
Okay.
So take me back to day one. And this could be when you were 5, 14, 22, whatever it is. But what first got your interest peaked in the beauty industry in the first place?
So I've always I've known that I wanted to be in the beauty industry till I was about 12 or 13. And when I was 15, I went to a vocational technical high school where I took hairdressing. So I technically got it for free, just had to purchase my kit, which was great. And I took hairdressing because I grew up in an inner city. I'm born and raised from Bridgeport, Connecticut, and the schools are just not the greatest. And I knew I wanted to maximize my high school experience. I was like, I'm going to go to a technical high school and I want to take up hair. There was someone that I looked up to in my church and she was very successful at what she did. So I got into hairdressing school, did it for 4 years. When I was 16 and a half, one of my friends got me a job at the salon she was working at as an assistant. The
Right.
lady was, her name was Anne Marie. She was Italian. Her salon was in Bridgeport in an inner city. And I really got my feet wet and I worked my butt off for 8 years there. She taught me so much stuff. She really set that foundation and the tone for the person I am today, for sure. I will definitely give her that. And from then on, I did 8 years there and I wanted to grow. So I outgrew that space and I
Yeah.
moved to Milford to a different town. And he gave me a chance at my chair and everything like that. But I started having my chair when I was about 20. I started doing clients because by then I was already assisting for three and
Oh,
a half years. A girl went on maternity leave and she was like, "This is your time. you're gonna start taking clients." And she just kind of threw me to the wolves. I started doing color retouch, blow dries, men haircuts even, which I do not do that now. Kids haircuts, prom updos. I was very big at doing wedding updos when I had first started. And I just kind of went from there. And then I became a colorist kind of later on. So, now I'll be 36 next month. I've been doing this almost 20 years now, licensed for
wow.
about 16, 17 now. And I would say once I got into my suite 8 years
Yeah.
ago, and I started kind of taking Instagram more seriously and started posting more. I felt like I was getting more people saying, "Hey, like, do you teach classes? Do you have an online education?" Because that was just starting to become a
Mm,
thing. And I was like, I don't, but I started thinking, I was like, wow, like there's not many people like me teaching. And what I mean by that, there's not
yeah.
many people teaching on brunettes. I had taken classes in the past, and when I first started, they were all no shade, but they were teaching on, the light hair girls, and I was like, I want to kind of break that cycle. I want to get out there and really teach on dark hair brunette girls, Latinas, Indians, Peruvians, you name it. And that's
Yeah.
kind of when I started to kind of get in there. After COVID, my Instagram started kind of picking up more. I was becoming more consistent. And Monica from Seven Hair Care, she noticed me and was like, "Hey, like we really love your work. Would you ever consider like educating?" Because they were an up and coming brand. And I was like, never thought about it, but yeah. So I auditioned and I got it, and I did my first in-suite education, which was great because I never did anything like that, and it was COVID, so
Yeah.
online education was key. Well, little did I know, all eyes were watching me then. And she's like, "We loved you so much. We want you to come to Vegas and teach on stage." And I'm like, "What? Okay." And then my first teaching in person was with another stylist, Jordan Kendall, which I love her so
Mhm.
much. She shared her platform with me, and we taught our first class together. Well, my first class together with her after COVID. And we sold our tickets. We did a smaller class, and we sold our
Yeah.
tickets in like 2, 3 weeks. And that gave me the push to like,
Oh,
I want to do more of this. It was very fulfilling. It wasn't like, "Oh,
mhm.
I'm tired. I don't think I'm gonna do it. This is not for me." No, I wanted to do more of that. And I felt like
Yeah.
the way I was teaching, I was getting such good feedback of how like, "Hey, I loved, what you taught was so simple yet basic, yet understandable, relatable, teachable." I'm a visual learner, always have, always will be. And I just felt like I hope what I can teach someone can learn from kind of thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, ever since then, I just been on like, okay, I'll teach another class, or you know what, let me share my platform with another artist, and let's, you know, do this together. And I've done that twice already, and I love that. And yeah, and so yeah, teaching has it kind of built up to that. It's not something that
Yeah.
I thought in the beginning I would do, but now
Sure.
that I do it, I see how relatable I can be to others. And I think that's what teaching really is, when you can be relatable, teachable. I love learning, but also I feel like I'm bringing a different insight to this industry with brunettes,
Yeah. I love
specifically
that.
like
So,
Latina hair.
yeah, I think it's a vastly like undereducated community, maybe not even underserved. I think there are plenty of, Latina salons that I've been in and seen, and like they explode, and there's such amazing points of community and whatnot. But the education side, you just don't see it that often, or at least
You don't,
it's not well marketed.
yeah.
Um, and so before we get into that whole topic, though, I want to back up just a little bit because I know that you're teaching now, and I thank you very much for like the overview you gave me. Like a
I
whole
know.
timeline in a
I went
truncated
0 to
space.
100 real
No,
quick.
and that's great because that means we can kind of go beyond that. But I want to dig in a little bit in terms of the education side. And as you were, coming of age in the industry and growing, and you know, even if it was in your time within inner city Bridgeport, or even after that when you've moved to Milford and things like that, what points of education did you find most helpful along your journey to make sure that you ended up in a good space? Or what do you think, what points of education really allowed you to even consider the fact that you could also be an educator?
Mm.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the podcast. This is just a really quick reminder for you to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and on Spotify. It helps us out a lot because then we get to know that you want more of this. So if you could quickly do that for us right now, that'd be great. And we'll continue to make more content for you just like this. All right, back to the pod.
So I think in the beginning it was, I've been in this industry for so long that in the beginning there wasn't much in-person education. If you wanted education, you had to go to the brand you were working with, Wella, Redken, Joico. So, or you would have their rep come to you. So we would get that at the salon, very far and few. It was more when I got on my own and I saw like, okay, Instagram, how are people learning this? And Behind the Chair definitely played a role in that with their online education because it was affordable.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I want to say probably back in 2017, 2016, I started taking in-person classes, meaning there were some educators that I followed and looked up to, and they started coming to my area, to Connecticut. And I've taken, just to name a few, Colored by Caitlin, Hair by Kate. I've taken a Gina Bianco class. Um, those are some people in Connecticut that I support. And once you start taking those classes, you start getting like really inspired. And I wanted to, there just wasn't too much at that time. So I started
Yeah.
taking more of those in-person classes. Then I would go to New York and take a best of balayage class where they had 3 artists there at one time. And yes, it's an investment, but I started reaping that investment back because I started applying some of that behind my chair. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that that's kind of when I started really getting into education, when people started, doing kind of what I'm doing, right? Putting themselves out there, but also it's like, hey, I really love what you do. I kind of want to learn some of that. And when I take classes, I just don't take them from anybody. I take it from people that inspire me, but also like we do kind of similar works, or like, hey, you're doing a brunette. I kind of want to learn more ways, or I'm actually taking a class in a few weeks by Ryan Whedon and Hair by Chrissy Danielle. And it's a
Mhm.
blondie class because I really want to like freshen up on some of my blondes. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So you're really learning just from like other pros in your area, but you've also been able to select people that I think inspire you and can help you again hone your craft even more as an
Yes,
educator now. Though
absolutely.
my question is, as someone who's looking to take classes from you, what can they expect to get from you and your point of view, and what are you offering them that maybe a lot of folks aren't getting other places?
Yep. So one, I'm spicy, so they're gonna get the full effect right off the rip, right? Because
I
that's
love
just
it.
they're gonna get the sazon no matter what. I don't gatekeep. I feel like I have gone to classes in the past where I'm like, okay, they really didn't go the full way. I am not like that.
Yeah.
I even have people that DM me and say, hey, like, how do you get your pictures like that? I'm gonna give you the 411. You don't have to pay me for that because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, like I was that person too, and nobody gave it to me. So you're going to get not only like you're going to learn everything I'm learning. I don't mind. I always ask people, please ask me questions. Please come up next to me if you need to see. You can video record me because you are paying for this class. A lot of times lately, I've been kind of giving off formula sheets as well because a lot of people find formulas
Nice.
very useful.
Hmm.
Granted, no two heads are the same, but people find them useful. I'm an open book. I ask people, ask me anything. No question is a dumb question. Like I really want you to ask me something because I know how that is where you want to ask and you're just like, I don't want to be that person to ask something. That's
Yeah.
maybe stupid. Uh, so yes, and when it comes down to techniques, I am very, it's very simplified. I I try to simplify it because I'm a simple person. I am not an overfoiler. So a lot of times they'll be like, wow, that's it, like this. And I'm like, yes, this is it. And then lastly, I love to show how I take my pictures. I try to break down as much as possible the editing, which I feel like a lot of educators are doing now because it adds
Hmm.
the value to the class. So I really
Yeah.
try to do that. I try to give a little bit of that social media advice that I have, that that I've known so far. And I'm kind of like, hey guys, pick at my brain because I could pick at yours kind of thing. And I think
Yeah.
what people love is I'm just, I'm like the girl next door, you know what I mean? Like I'm just a relatable girl. So when I'm in class, it's not like, all right, guys, we're starting now. Like, no, let's loosen up a little bit, because I want them, we're going to be together for 5 hours.
Yeah. I love that. Well, also kudos to you on doing the social media side. Again, I always equate it to not only are you learning the technique, you're also learning how to show it off,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's just as important because
Yeah.
they need to sell it.
You have to
Right
sell
now,
it.
they know how to do it. You got to sell it.
Yeah, and a
So
lot of
kind of,
people struggle with that. They
yeah,
do.
100%.
There's so many hairdressers, and I tell them like, you're not talented because you can't post your work. Like I know so many people in my suite, like their work is bomb. They just don't care to post it like that, and that's totally fine. But they do really good work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just being able to show that off. There's a great meme that was like, I signed up to be a hairstylist, not a content creator. Why am I doing both?
Oh
And it is
God,
like, if
yeah,
you are a business owner in this day and age, right, myself included, you're on social media, right?
yeah.
Like, you don't want to pay a lot of money
No,
to someone else to try to do it for you.
no.
You gotta figure it out. So on that note, though, so you said that in 2020 era, that whole obviously there's a lot going on in the world, but you
Mm-hmm.
started to notice that you were getting more and more reach and following on your social media. What do you think was contributing most to that you were doing?
Consistency. Consistency
Preach. Yeah.
is the best thing. Just putting yourself out there every day. I would post every day. I had my daughter in 2020, so you have a lot of downtime with a newborn, and you just, I've learned that I don't take pictures of all of my clients, but if I have
Mm.
that one or two a week that I'm like, I love their hair and their hair photographs well, I'm gonna take as much content on that one client video before, after, technique video. And I do this all by myself. Maybe a funny video.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make that one client give me content for at least a week or more.
Yeah.
And I just think being consistent with it and knowing how to what captures your audience. Who are you talking to? Today I'm going to be talking to the stylist. Tomorrow I'll be talking to my Latinas. Another day I'll be talking to, a different audience. But I always say
Mhm.
definitely whatever you're going to post, know your audience for that post. A lot of times lately I've just been really educating just my peers, the hairdressers, and a lot of clients will say that because they love the color, but really I try to educate as much as I can in my post, because I feel like information is important.
Oh
It's
yeah.
what people feed off of.
Right. It's a great way to build trust, right? Through
Yes,
education. People are teaching you, you're teaching your audience, and as they, apply those techniques to what you're teaching and it works for them, that builds you up in their mindset around like who they want to trust in the market. So that makes a ton of sense. What you've
completely.
also done though is included you in a lot of your posts. Um,
Oh,
was that always the case?
that
And if not, when was that transition?
oh, like when I started putting myself in the videos. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I probably started doing that maybe a year ago, maybe a little before, maybe 2 years ago. I think
Hmm.
that sometimes in the beginning when I did Instagram, it was like, it's not about you, it's about your work, right? It's like no one really cares about you. We just want to see what you do, and that's it. But as I've gotten older and now I'm like, no, I feel like people want to see what you're doing. I would post in my stories like non-hair related things. And I noticed my views had went up. People were like really interested in my home and my daughter, and I was like, wow, I really need to show up more because people are really interested in me. And
Yeah.
sometimes my clients would come and be like, girl, I saw you were at this restaurant the other day, like how was it? And that's when I was like, I need to show up more. Like I need to show up and show out. So I started getting a little creative. I do feel like I'm a funny person. I don't know if you could tell, but I just am. And I was like, my husband's like, you gotta put yourself out there a little. So I kind of tested the waters with TikTok. TikTok's a good
Mhm.
tester. You could just throw whatever and anything on there.
See what sticks.
You
Oh
see
yeah.
what sticks, what doesn't stick. And I have to be honest, sometimes I post on Instagram and it won't do as well. And then I'll post on TikTok and I'm like, oh, it does really well. So I'll
Hmm.
like play. But I feel like, yeah, about 2 years ago, I probably put myself a little more out there. And lately, I just did like a consultation video. And I'm like, I got to do this more because people want to see the person also behind the hair.
Yeah.
And also, again, it brings back to you're relatable. Someone sees me, they see I'm a Latina girl, I'm down to earth. You know what? Like, I feel like she could really do my hair, and we're gonna vibe really well, just because they see my personality out there. And I'm
Yep.
trying to do a little bit more of that. I am a very private person, in a lot of ways, but I feel like I don't mind giving you know, a little
A
snack
little
bite,
taste every
a
now.
little
Yeah.
here
Right.
and there. A little
Yeah.
munchkin here and there.
Right. No, that's good. I mean, again, it's one of those where it's part of your brand is who you are. I mean, you can't hide it when you're in with someone for
No,
2, 3, 4 hours, right?
yeah,
So people want to know what they're getting into. It's also not a small
absolutely.
investment,
No,
right?
no,
You're going
it's
to pay
not.
money to sit down with someone for that amount of time.
And
I
that
better
first,
know that,
yes,
I mean, come on.
and that
They
first
better know that
appointment,
they're into it.
yeah, and that first appointment could be very, I don't want to say awkward, but whenever I meet a first time client, I know that they're probably nervous, right? And I get a little nervous myself too. I mean, doing this 17, 18 years, I'm still get nervous, but it's the one thing I do is like, hey girl, how are you? What are we doing today? Do you want a drink? Do you need to use the bathroom? Like I want them to feel relaxed when they come in. And I feel like by the time I'm doing their third, fourth foil, I know we connected.
Yeah.
We're on the right foot. And that's why I love taking on new clients because you just meet all these new people. But I think being authentic, I've learned throughout the years is still something that I think we all struggle with. It's like, do we be too much or too less? But I think just show up and be yourself is the best
Hmm.
thing because people can see fakeness like this, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're trained on it now, right?
yeah.
Um, so going back to the whole Instagram and being consistent, right? I think that's a great point of advice, something that we teach at the Salon Hub religiously in almost every conversation that we have that kind of tends to come up of like, how are you being consistent? What's the best way? For you, I'm interested in how you're driving that consistency in content, not only capture creation, but then publishing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there are stages to this,
There
right?
is.
How have you found a way to, kind of get this engine to start churning without it affecting your day to day so much that it feels like this crazy weight so that you can still remain free, but
Yep.
feel the freedom of ownership? This podcast is sponsored by the Salon Hub. Have you joined the Salon Hub community yet? Salon Hub is the first community designed to support salon suite professionals in their endeavor to become successful entrepreneurs. The community is free to join, so sign up today and share your experience, get answers to your questions, and ask for feedback from your peers as we all aim to grow in 2024. To sign up, visit thesalonhub.social and click the community button at the top. We'll be waiting for you.
So, the biggest advice I can give, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. The quicker. Like now
Mm-hmm.
I could finish work, upload from my professional camera onto my phone, edit, upload it, do a photo, do a nice caption, throw a bomb song on it, boom, be done. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, yeah, it used to take some time. So normally after each of my clients, depending on, I live on the East Coast, so now we're getting some sunlight, but usually my first two clients of the day, I always set aside just 10-15 minutes for pictures. I don't set a lot of time, usually just 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I just need like 15-20 pictures. The more you do it, the more you take pictures, the more you're going to see what works better. Sometimes you have to play around, but again, the more you do it, the better you will become. So I kind of set some time aside for that. But usually by the end of the day, I upload whatever pictures I have onto my phone. I automatically see what are my favorites at first glance, pick the one that I like, lightly edit, and then upload it. Reels are a little bit different because reels are starting to
Mm,
be, well, they are the future. So with
yeah.
Reels, I take a lot of videos on my phone throughout the day. And by the end of the day, I'll piece it all together with what song, what vibe, or I'll use a template on CapCut and I'll upload 10 videos
Mm,
and it'll do the majority of it for me. But that's pretty much what I do. And I usually set aside after work, like by the time I get home, like my husband will give me like, 30 minutes to 45 minutes so I could do what I need to do. I don't do it every day. I don't post
mm,
every day, but I feel like I try to do at least 3 to 4 a week, sometimes 3 a week. Sometimes you go a week without even doing it, but I
mm,
feel like I try to stay consistent with it, with the posting and with trying to get as much content as possible. It can be overwhelming for some in the beginning. I get that a lot.
yeah.
People are like, it gets very overwhelming. But again, the more you get out of your comfort shell, it won't be awkward for when you do it or take a picture of your client, you know?
Yeah. So you're integrating a lot of the content capture as a part of the service, it sounds like, right? Not
Yes.
only is there dedicated time at the end that you've put into that
Yes.
timeline of
Oh,
your
yeah,
service
I
provider.
do. I'll add it in. Usually my first two clients, or if I know it's a returning client, I'm like, oh, I got Phyllis coming in. She got great hair. Oh my God, she's like one of my girls on my wall. I'm definitely gonna block out like an extra 10 minutes for her hair,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll let her know prior, like if I want a face shot, I'm like, hey girl, do you mind like putting on some makeup? Um, you're gonna be my Instagram girl for the day. She's like, okay, so I'll like do
So
something
you do
like
give
that.
them a heads up,
Yes,
right? So
sometimes I do.
you
Not
okay.
all the time because I don't want
All right.
people to feel pressured. If a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
take a look at my work, you're not going to see too many faces because I have a lot of working moms, working people that are nurses that are coming from work or they come right off a third shift. I don't want them to feel like they have to always be glammed up. And when
Yeah.
they see what I can create after I take the picture of their hair, they're like, oh my God, I can't even believe that's me behind that hair, you know?
Nice. I love that. Um, so I think that also plays into the fact that like some sounds like you do a really good job of one connecting with your clients, which is obviously, table stakes. You have to in this
Yes.
area, especially when you're working for yourself. But you're kind of training them on also what to expect in terms of, okay, you're probably going to get your hair like your photo taken, and if it's not your face, it's at least going to be your hair,
It's gonna be your
right?
hair. Yeah.
And they're fairly cool with it. Have you dealt with a lot of folks in your book that are like, I do not want my photo taken at all?
I have to say no. And I think that comes
Nice.
with how you make them feel comfortable
Mm,
before your appointment, when you're doing your consultation, during their appointment, like all of that. That's something I learned a long time ago. And even after the appointment, like I always make sure after, like, hey, like, let's make your next appointment. The last thing we do is take your picture. Like the last thing we do. Like
okay.
I want to make sure that they're okay, they love it. If there's anything I need to tweak, but usually when I pull that cape off and they're like, oh my God, I love it. And I'm like, do you mind if I take a picture? Because this is gorgeous. They're like, oh my God, you want to take a, like, they're actually shocked. They're, you want to take a picture of my hair? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I do want to take
Yeah.
a picture of your hair. And then I'll feel them out. And a lot of times they'll just say, like, yeah, take a picture of my hair, just not my face. And I'm like, girl, that's fine. Um, but sometimes when they get comfortable, it's how I make them feel in front of the camera. And they're like, okay, I'm like, you want to give me a little smile? And then I always show them a picture. I'll take 5 and then show them. And then they're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I can't believe that's me. I can't even believe that's my hair. And I'm like, yeah. And then they start feeling a little more comfortable and that guard kind of comes down. But I do think that for the moment they sit in your chair, making them feel comfortable allows them to want you to take their picture and footage. And same, I'll be
Yeah.
like, hey girl, I'm gonna take some video footage today. Do you mind? It's gonna be for Instagram and TikTok. And usually they're like, yeah, that's fine. Like they're sipping their coffee and they're like, fine. I'm like, okay, girl. For the ones
Right.
that are
There's,
for the ones that have been in my chair for years, I don't even ask. I'm already video. Like, yeah, girl, what are we doing today? Okay, girl, I'm already. I'm doing two things at once. I'm video recording your hair. I'm taking before pictures,
yep.
and I'm asking you, what are we doing? And how was your weekend? All in the same convo. That's multitasking at its best.
Yes, that is epic. That's a true pro right
Yeah,
there. A one woman show
a
for
one
sure.
woman show.
So speaking of that though, then, right, I kind of want to get a little bit more about your decision of going out on your own
Mm-hmm.
and when you made that. You said 8 years ago you went out on your own for the first time.
Eight years ago.
So you are a, a seasoned pro at this point of owning your own suite, I will say. Um, Not old by any means, because if you're old, then I'm old. So
Oh
we're
God,
not
no.
old, right? But we are experienced. And you have a lot of experience running your own shop. But I'm wondering, what was that transition like? What was going around in your head and the things that you were kind of deliberating about maybe internally that led to leaving the safety of the salon nest that's run by someone else and then going out and creating your own space and doing things the way that you wanted to do it? Can you take us
Mm-hmm.
into that headspace and what you were thinking about then?
Money.
Yeah.
Money. You think of like, okay, like I'm making this money for this person. They're taking this. I'm booked out 6 weeks in advance. I think I can do this on my own. That's when suites kind of started coming to Connecticut and being
Mm-hmm.
more like just becoming more big. They were kind of opening up in every town and city. So I had started with a friend. We had opened up together. She kind of convinced me because I'm a Gemini. I definitely don't. I'm a comfort person. So where I was before, I loved my job. I he was My boss was great with me. But the thought kind of crossed my head. I'm like, hey, I'm making this much, and he's taking 50%, right? But
Yeah.
after she convinced me, I came to the suites, and I want to say 90% of my clientele followed me because that's the scary part, making that transition. And,
Yeah.
you win some, you lose some, but most of them followed me and I started loving it. I was like, oh my God, I love that we can make our own schedule. So I feel like the two drives is money and schedule because people don't want to work Saturdays, evenings. I mean, the industry is changing in terms of scheduling wise. I knew that
Yeah.
eventually I was going to be a mom and settle down. So I didn't want to work all day, every day, and every weekend. So the only way to kind of nip that in the butt is working for yourself. So that was the drive behind it.
Yeah. Money and freedom of schedule. I mean, very common for sure. Um,
Yes. But I will say when I left my old job, Frank, he's amazing. It's crazy because we ended up later working together in the suites. He had closed his shop and came here. He was
nice.
so supportive. I told him thinking like, oh, he's gonna kick me out tomorrow, and he was like, take your book, Nathi. Like you've earned them. Like I can't do what you do. He's like, I'm just happy we had 3, 4 years together. He was honestly
Wow.
amazing and so supportive, which I think made that transition. Like me going from working in a commission salon to the suite, there was no bad air there. I felt like he was
That's
like,
awesome.
hey, honey, it's time for you to go now. It's time for you to spread your wings and fly.
Yeah. Papa birded you right out of the nest, right? That's
Pretty much.
that analogy. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, because a lot of, there's been a lot of talk now with, non-competes ending from like a
Yes,
government standpoint, where there are a lot of people that are finally maybe starting to get that freedom where they felt like they were controlled for a long period of time. Like obviously not California, that's never been a thing there, but on the
right.
East Coast, it's a pretty common practice for a lot of salons
Yeah,
to put in a non-compete.
I was fortunate. I never had anything like
Yeah,
that.
that's
I
great.
don't think I would ever
Yeah.
sign anything. I mean, they're pretty ridiculous from what I hear. But
Yep.
yeah, I think that a lot of because people are afraid, right? They're afraid if they get caught, right, with those non-competes. It's like we're gonna take you to court.
Yeah, it's crazy. But now that that's getting phased out, there are a lot of people that I think are finally starting to, consider the concept that it might be for them because they don't have to wait 6 months anymore and lose a lot of the people that they had in their book. They can
Hmm.
actually start pretty quickly. So, as someone who is, I would say a season, as we said, a seasoned pro, 8 years in, what are some of the big things that you would recommend to someone that maybe is considering that jump right now? Like this can be either big lessons learned or like this is what you have to do before you jump.
Yeah.
Either one works.
So I do think having a consistent clientele, like you should be at least booked out 75% of the time because when you move on your own, you have other costs that you have to cover. So I definitely say have a consistent booking. And that's something you can tell just from how people book out, if you're booking a month out. I definitely think that when you come here, you have to be content with, hey, you're going to be by yourself, but you also are going to be open to meeting new people and you're going to be still a part of a community. It's just different. Everyone has their own space, which I love. I'd
Hmm.
never really recommend a new grad coming straight into the
Yeah.
suites, but I have to say, some of this new generation, they're surprising me because these kids are graduating the hair schools and they are killing it. They're like, they're kind of doing what I do, and that took me a long time to get to my level. And I think you have to the hustle. You have to learn how to
Yeah.
hustle. I still work behind the chair. I still give in on Saturdays every now and then, but the hustle never stops. The hustle and the grind never stops, especially around
Yeah.
the holiday season. You have to be ambitious. You can't be lazy. You are a one person show. You're cleaning up your suite. You're doing everything. So if you're not on top of things, especially with bookkeeping, it will become a problem. It
Yeah.
will become a problem. So I think definitely having that clientele, um, being a hustler, not lazy, that's for sure. And
Hmm.
just continuing to put yourself out there, being open as well. I think that the more people that you do in your care, like the word of mouth is it's huge. Um, and yeah, as long as you're okay with, I work by myself, but then I don't, so I'm talking to my clients all day long. I mean, I drive home in silence. I'm tired. So yeah.
I love that. That's great. Well, no, I think that's really good advice. Very sage advice in that, it's something that we commonly hear is build your book, know that you have a solid book, and then make sure that you stay on top of your numbers.
Yeah,
Because those
get
two
get an
things,
accountant is key because
yeah.
your first year opening up your you should really have it under an LLC. You really should, I feel like there's so many hairdressers, they don't know their numbers. They don't know what they're pulling in after you paid everything off. And I had did a
Hmm.
post about that, about numbers, because people think, when we're in this industry, you know, doubling your number isn't really making it. You really need to triple and quadruple to really benefit a profit. And there's some people in just other businesses, they're like, they don't even know what they're profiting. Not me,
Yeah.
honey. I'm on it like white on rice. And there's two things I don't play with, God and the IRS. So at
Yeah.
the end, I don't want that, come February when I file my taxes, and I'm like, yeah, so the we owe 17,000. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So having
Yeah.
a good booking system, an accountant, these are things that you learn as well. But having an accountant will help guide you through the financial aspect. That way you can focus on your hair, in your business.
I love that. Yeah, no, it's so true. So in the beginning, with a lot of salon suites, it's really all about time behind the chair, and you're building out your book based on the time that you're spending in your salon, making revenue by providing services because you are in a physical space that allows you to do that. A lot of folks later in their career, as they become more seasoned and more experienced, they do go to more education options or finding ways to not stand behind the chair as often. They're trying to create some type of mix of income that is service based and then potentially something else. How do you think about that and your career trajectory? Obviously, you're an educator, as we've talked about. Are you hoping to rip and replace a lot of that from service to education? Do you always want to make sure that you're providing service? What does that look like for you?
Good.
How are you thinking about that mix? The Beyond the Suite podcast is presented by the Salon Hub and the Salon Hub's Salon Marketing 101 course. The Salon Hub Marketing 101 course is designed to teach you the building blocks of marketing that you can apply to your salon business so you can get more clients in your chair in less time. So if you haven't taken a marketing class before, this is a great place to start. To join, all you have to do is go to learning.thesalonhub.social to get started today.
So I will say, I think 50-50. It's a nice balance because I can't say that for me, I still want to learn. I still want to grow. I'm always going to be that person. And I can't sit and continue to educate if I'm not filling my cup. I can't fill others' cup if my cup isn't getting filled. I can't educate on an empty cup. It doesn't work that way. So I think for me, I like that balance where I am still behind the chair because that still fuels me. I've been doing this 20 years and I can still say I love my job. I left being a respiratory therapist in an ICU for 7 years to do this full time. I literally left benefits and all to do this because I said, this is what I want to do. And that still, it gives me butterflies. Like if I'm on a first date, my husband knows I'm married to him, but I'm married to my job as well. It's not even in my job. It's what I love to do. So I think that it's a nice balance. As for the education, it kind of came up more opportunity wise, where someone noticed me and presented the opportunity to me every single time. And I was just like, okay, I guess I could do this. I'm not going to lie, fear always seeps in. And it can win if you continue to doubt yourself. But I've learned to say, no, I know I can do this and I'm going to push through and do it. So I think for the future right now, I mean, I'm going to be 36. I mean, I hope to be going at 50, 60, but I mean, it's kind of crazy. I will say I invest in compression socks and my chiropractor on a weekly basis and deep tissue massages. But
There
it's
you go.
uh I think the education allows me to see, venture out and be creative. It really allows me to do what I really don't do behind the chair sometimes. I could be creative and do that because you're working on models or you're doing content. So when I do projects or things for Joico, like I'm a Joico partner, and I can really be creative if they give me a project, which I love to do. So I think it's kind of nice to have that balance. But I do, in the future, I would love to hopefully do online education where I can do a video, have it done, and sell it, and I can do series on it. Kind of, I see some people doing it. I want my own intake on it, but I feel like that's what I see myself doing, and that's what I hope to do. That's kind of like the next goal that I have.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's so great. I
yeah,
mean, you seem deserving of it, right? You're passionate, obviously. That's very obvious by the how you present your ideas and when you're talking about your job, right?
I get
What you love to
happy.
do.
I get
I know, I
happy.
see it.
I get
And that's
home and
important.
I'm stressed, but I'm stressed in a good way. Like it's like I love when I get those text messages and yes, your heart drops when you get a text message from a client. You're like, "Oh my God, does she love her hair? Does she not?" And I love when they're like, "Oh my God, I love my hair so much. Thank you so much for today." That fulfills me so
That's
much.
great.
So I'm hoping that I can continue. But this industry is hard on our bodies. It's hard on our bodies, and as I get older, it's hard on our mind mentally, especially with social media today. A lot of people don't know how to filter out, and I'm learning now, okay, I got to filter out some of these things and sometimes just have that tunnel vision because if I let other things get into the pockets of my head, I'm gonna be a hot mess. I'm gonna be a hot mess.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Also, it's how do you stay true to you when you're trying to accommodate for all these other things that are coming at you? You're like, oh, I want to do this, and I want to do it that way, and I want to do it this way. And it's like,
yes,
well, from a content perspective in that mind and how you market yourself,
right.
because you are your business and so much of it is truly you,
Mhm.
making sure that you hold on to a lot of your core
Yes, it's so
self
important to
in
me.
your content. Yeah,
Mhm.
right. Because everyone's coming for you. And we talk about this all the time on this podcast, but like people are coming for you and who you are and how you make them feel on top
Absolutely.
of the talent that you possess, right? But you're going to do things completely differently from a content, from a service, from a overall provider way than the person down the hall from you is going to do it.
Yeah.
And that is the point, right?
Yeah,
That's how you
exactly.
can all exist, is
Yeah.
because you're doing it your own way. And being informed is one thing, trying to accommodate and be something else from what you're seeing online, I think is a great way to race yourself into a hole of discontent,
Yeah. And
right?
I mean,
Because then you're
that's what's,
comparing.
oh, absolutely. And I think like being a content creator, whether whatever industry you're in, that's what makes us so unique because you're not in competition with anyone else because what you're doing, I think the more people realize that, like, honey, you're not going to do anything that Sue's doing because you're doing something totally different. The more people realize that, the more you're going to be content with what you're doing. The more content you are, the more true and authentic you're going to come off to so many other people.
Yeah, and it solves a lot of the problems of building trust online because people can tell when you're not being genuinely you, or you're selling one thing online, they get in your chair, and then it's not that,
Yes.
right? Again, you can't hide yourself for that many hours. It's like almost impossible,
It,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah. And
you
even
gotta you
for
gotta figure it out.
And even for brands, when people are like, well, how do you get brands to recognize you? And I say, stay true to yourself. Don't give up. Hashtag, I've been hashtagging Joyful for years, years. I mean, I've been using their stuff for years. I use other brands too, but I've been hashtagging for years. And it was one person, Cynthia, she's been watching me for a while. And 2 years ago, Joico revamped their Blonde Life Lightener, and they're like, they wanted to add some flavor in there. So she's like, look, I've been watching this girl. She always uses your stuff. Like you guys need to look at her stuff. So one day I get an email or actually a DM from Joico saying they wanted me to work on this project. And I'm not going to lie, I
Whoa.
thought it was a scam because I was like, this is, I get those scams from Joico, Redken,
Oh yeah.
all the time. So I was like, let me reply back. I'm like, yeah, if interested, email me here, blah, blah, blah. So I get an email. And then they're like, hey, we really want you to work on this. Like, I did a call with them. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. And once I had the call, I'm not going to lie, I was scared because I'm like, I don't
Mm,
think I can deliver what they want from me. I was doubting myself. I'm not gonna lie,
sure.
because I was gonna fly out to California. I was gonna go and do this thing, and my husband's like, "You got this. You can do it." So I ended up doing it. I worked on the photo shoot. It was me and this other girl, Jacinia. And little did we know that this opportunity we had brought us to behind the chair and have our moment on
Whoa.
stage at behind the chair. And for me, that was just such a memorable moment I'll never forget because I was out there. I had my 3 minutes of fame on behind the chair stage for Joico. Like things that I've spoken in my life that I wanted. And here I am. I'm like, oh my God, it's actually happening. Like it's you know what I mean? It's blossoming now. So all because someone was watching me and she had followed me for quite some time. And at that time, I had maybe 6,000 followers. I mean, I've had my page hacked. I've had to restart all over again. And
Yep.
here I am. I'm like, wow, like they gave me an opportunity from so many other stylists that was out there. So I always tell
Yeah.
people, you never know who's watching you. Like be you,
And be true to
keep
you.
be
Yeah.
true to you, keep posting, keep being consistent. Don't change for nobody.
Yeah, I mean, again, they'll come to you because they're looking for people who are authentically themselves, right? If they wanted someone they could mold into what they needed, they would just hire a model, right? Or,
Absolutely.
it's a different thing. They're trying to glean off you, not you off of them, and that's a
Hmm.
hard structure to really portray to someone. But that's why brands use influencers. They're gaining influence through other people's trust that they've built, and the best way to build trust, as we've been talking about, is showing off who you are. Truly.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right. Well, I got one last question for you because all of it you've been giving us has been great. It feels like it's been 15 minutes, but it's been much longer than that. So,
I know it does.
uh,
It feels like it's been like 15 minutes, but like, look, we've been 50 minutes. It's crazy.
yeah,
See, this is
craziness.
how it is. If you were to come to my
It's
family's
how,
house, it'd be a wrap. You would feel like you're
yeah.
my cousin. You know what I mean?
I mean, I listen. I would. The food's probably epic. Let's put it that
Always,
way.
always.
So my last question for you is someone who's in your suite down the hall, right? But they're struggling a little bit. Um, they come to you and they say, Nathi, I need help. I can't, I don't feel like it's working for me right now. They could give you a million reasons, but for you, it's like, I want your 2 to 3 points of, listen, if you're in a rut, here's how I recommend you get out of it.
Mhm. Okay.
What
So
do you
like
say?
if they're in a rut in terms of like a color
They,
question or the like if they don't want to stay in the suite
business,
anymore. Oh, business.
like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
Yep.
Like, you know that they are, they're talented, right? But they're just not. I mean, people, again, as we talked about, can be talented,
Mm-hmm.
but the business doesn't take off or it doesn't go the way that they think it's going, and they're kind of hitting this low point, right? We all got ebbs and flows as business owners. There's high points, there's low points.
Yep.
What do you say to someone that's in the rut?
So usually I'll ask them if they, we usually, I feel like a lot of us in here, they've been here as long as I have. So we really have that connection where I can sit and be like, hey girl, well, what is it that is not working? Because I'm the person like, you can't give me just a vast, oh, I don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
be
yeah.
here. Why? I need to know why and what is it because there's something behind it. And if it's
Mm,
something that there's always a solution to everything. And if it's something where they're like, well, business wise, I'm not doing great, or, I'm like, okay, well, what do you use for your booking? Right? I usually will start there and I use Style Seat. And I use Style Seat because in the beginning of my career, a lot of clients have Style Seat, and that's how they can get clients to come to you. So that right there helps you 50% of your booking. And then I
okay.
would always say, well, how's your Instagram? Let me look at your Instagram. I'm not an Instagram perfectionist. I mean, I like my page to be as close to perfection, but I will say let me take a look at your page so we can kind of like see where I can help you in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not in a criticizing way. It's here, I want
Right.
to help you. And I have to say that here in my suites, I take my pictures out front and there's other hairdressers that are out front taking pictures and they ask me sometimes, hey Nathi, can you help me? Or sometimes I'll just be like, hey girl, her hair will look so good if we just position her this way. And they don't take it offensive because they know that the place that I'm coming from. So I feel
Yeah.
like I will try my best to guide them in a way of, hey, there's a solution for this. I just need to know what it is. But
Yeah.
usually if someone leaves, it's usually because their business, they're not making the numbers that they thought they could to stay in a suite. So
Yeah.
something hiccuped, for them coming here, I guess, that stopped that or whatever.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right. I lied. I have one more question for
Go
you.
ahead, shoot.
Looking forward to the rest of the year. What are you most excited about for you, your business, your opportunities looking forward, right? We talked about Vegas. I'm sure that's exciting, but I just want to hear about a little bit about you and what's coming up. What can we expect for those that are watching you now?
So,
Um,
oh, a reality
what do you,
show now.
yeah, no, yo, I'll watch.
Um, I feel like a lot of people know me as a brunette girl, right? And for me, that's what brings me joy. But as you could see, I've been dabbling in some of my blondes, and I've been
Mhm.
posting some of that too. Not that I want to attract too much of a blonde clientele, but I do love doing them to a certain extent. So it's okay for me to see a little more diversity on my page. You're always gonna see some spiciness, but people are probably going to see a little bit of a different variety coming up and also seeing a little bit of me more. I want to put myself a little more out there, like I've been doing. And
Yeah.
I would say what I'm looking forward to this year. This year, I'm actually focusing on getting education. I'm going to be taking a few classes this year because, again, I feel like that's what fills my cup and
Mhm.
makes me it re-inspires me and I love being re-inspired. And I'm also excited for my Vegas trip. I always look forward to going there with my seven hair care family. It's always a
Mhm.
blast when we go there, but I love that I connect with a bunch of people on a smaller scale because it's not like a thousands of hairdressers. It's way smaller, and I love that. So that's what, and I'm a mom. My
Yeah.
honestly, my number one goal is being with my daughter. Like I'm all about women empowerment,
Hmm.
especially as a Latina. And it's not like, oh, we could do it all. You know what I mean? Because no, nobody can do it all. When I'm doing hair, I'm giving that 100%. When I'm being a mom, I'm doing that 100%. But I think a lot of people can relate with me because I'm a mom too. And they're
Hmm.
like, well, how do you do a business and this? And tending to your business takes a lot of work. It really does, but it's also, you can see the fruits of your labor if you continue to water it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So those are the things I think I would say I'm kind of looking forward to um, for this year and for me and my business. Sometimes you just never know with us Latinas. Tomorrow could be something different. Something could pop up and I could just go with the flow. You know what I mean? So you never know.
I love it. I mean, again, you make plans and life gets in the way, right? Like
Yes.
there's a reason that that is an adage, and it's very much how you adapt and
Yes.
pivot based on what that has. But it sounds like you got a lot coming. We'll be certain to keep tabs on hopefully seeing more of you, a little bit more, diversity in the colors of hair that we're going to see on your feed. That should be really fun.
Yeah.
I want to wish you the best of luck in not only your education that you're taking, but that you're providing over this next year. We'll
Thank
be
you.
in touch 100%. But thank you so much for your time and speaking with us. It was awesome. Your preaching of consistency and bringing more of you to your business is, I mean, heard loud and clear from my side. It's something that
Thank
we
you.
try to preach as much as possible, and you are living it, and you're a great example. So, thank you
Thank
for
you.
being able to talk with us today and sharing your story. And I can't wait to hear more down
Oh,
the
thank you
line.
so much for having me. I really appreciate it.